Heyo, crowdfunding roundup, end of January, before we hit the hype train of February. Still some $100,000 projects that you didn't know were launching this week. You ready? Buckle up, let's go, no preamble. Got plenty of other videos though in stock, ready to load. Shoot them off next week and things are gonna make waves. I'm telling you right now. So subscribe if you're not, that's all I'm saying. You've been warned. Let's do it. Garfield Games and the South Tigris Trilogy expansions, one for each of the games, plus a Moon Saga campaign expansion. Custom build your own pledge. Get all your expansions, get all your base games, get all your deluxeified coins. So many coins! Although, maybe per this graphic, they're all actually the same coins. So if you bought the games separately, you may have 3 sets of identical coins that you could have just used one for every single one. Who cares, right? Over deluxeification justification. That'll be a whole nother video in the upcoming future, though. Do you need all expansions? Are all expansions created equal? Which of the South Tigris games of the heavy, heavier, and heaviest, like the 3 little bears and their porridges, is for you? $112 though for expansions. 3 expansions before shipping. That's still a lot of money, folks. That's going to be over $40 per expansion later on. You know, Garfield, you get what you see. Quality product, indie designer, indie publisher, and that's what you need to know. Get it later, get it now, and take that for what you will. These are, relatively speaking, not my usual games. So I'm not going to give you the usual mechanical breakdown in this style of things. Just know that if you like the Wayfarers and the moving across the tracker in order to do the end game round triggering and bonus comboing that this offers, you're going to have new ways of doing commerce along the Mesopotamia here. Better ways to upgrade your workers, recruit your traders, and get more influence over the Red Guild in the first place. New cards galore to go along with it. Scholars here is going to give you the body of books. Doctors from near and far bringing books and scrolls and their discoveries. New research track, new black dice, and new concept of publishing books as it lays through here. And Inventors is bringing you the expert era, if you will. 12 unique asymmetric playable characters, own asymmetric abilities, starting bonuses, and motivations. Well, that actually makes me a little more interested now in Inventors. It's going to be too heavy for me. It's one of those games. I had the chance to get SETI as a review copy, and I was like, I just can't do it right now. So there's a how to play and a playthrough. Take it for what you will. It's killing it. It's got $300,000, and it'll probably be close to double that by the time this ends, which, again, you look at this comparatively sometimes. Don't be fooled. This is a crowdfunding campaign for expansions. Well, for the most part. And it's getting $300,000. That's still freaking awesome. Then we're going over here, and it's going to be a place for all my books, right? Usually, truth be told, there aren't too many 6-digit or higher crowdfunding games that launch without me having an inkling of they're coming or what's going on or anything about them. And this one from Smirk and Dagger absolutely came out of nowhere. I wasn't aware of this one whatsoever. This is going to be an action selection, stacking your books, physically stacking the books, creating combos, organizing them around your apartment on a space-by-space action basis, because as you move along, you'll have different ways of taking actions within your apartment, as well as to build up your social, well, we'll say social anti-anxiety, because you need a certain social cred, 5 of them, in order to travel outside of your apartment to go get more books at other various places around the village. And then you travel around doing similar things at the village, gathering up more books to be able to bring back to your combo-driven apartment, condo, house, whatever in the first place. Then what triggers the end game in this is going to be every time someone goes out of their apartment and builds up enough street cred, see what he did there, you then move the round marker essentially one step further. When it reaches the end, everyone takes equal turns and the game ends. Now you can get the Luxified edition of this and get all the little stuff that you want along with it to make it really cool like that. And if you also want to do the solo mode, they've included a solo mode as well here. There is a rule book and there is a spatial element to this. So spatial elements are things that I love the idea of, but I am not good at them, and so sometimes they become a more frustration in practice than anything else. Kickstarter exclusive bookmarks? Are these actual bookmarks, or are these really gameplay oriented? No, they're just maybe bookmarks. Okay. You're getting the wood book tiles, though, which I think is the main part that people might want in the standard edition. So that'd be my question. Is there actually any gameplay, as I was sort of skimming over this with the deluxeified one? I mean, it's not even a bad price for a deluxeified, $15 more for it. Magnetic closure, book style box, wood book tiles like we saw earlier, just basically some of the other stuff in wood, essentially. How to play Rado. Rado gets his own section. I mean, that's, you don't usually see that on crowdfunding. They always get lumped together. So must be a good one in that sense. And there's a couple other preview playthroughs there as well. What's shipping going to cost? The usual stuff? Okay, $17 on top of it. Yeah, I mean, it's expensive nowadays, especially with other stuff going on in the world, right? Nothing else is happening the last week or so in the world. So take that for what you will, but that is a place for all my books. Then we have Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid. This is the last one, in case you were wondering, in case you've seen this several times around before. Well, you have. And you know what? Renegade has had a relatively good hit on their hands here. And from the cost to entry standpoint, that's probably been the biggest barrier for myself. Right, like I actually have watched Power Rangers with my kids. We've watched like multiple seasons, as this has been out like as long as Pokemon, right? And almost as many iterations. But it actually is relatively good for kids because the fighting is very play style, and again, it's very wholesome in some ways, much more so than a lot of other stuff. But that being aside, it's got a 2 main phase system here. The main criticism is, yeah, I mean, the core box is going to be $90 in a lot of other situations, as I saw it at retail, and $60 for a deluxe expansion. Lack of content is never going to be the issue with, I don't know, something probably like, 20 expansions or boxes at this point. And this is the final one. The only thing that I don't really see on this page, that even when you go over to the main Board Game Geek page, is to say, okay, what is so unique about this? And a couple of the reviews actually talk about it being more of a tower defense-esque style of playing these 4 cards from the enemy decks in order to see the combo-driven attack scheme that you're going to be having to deal with. And you either win or lose depending on what happens with the locations that you're having to deal with, because if 4 of them get panicked, you lose, and if enough Rangers get knocked out, you lose. It gives me more of like a Marvel United vibe, if you will. So it's going to be a little bit lighter, but it's going to have that depth of variability that's going to come in with a lot of the villains and a lot of the unique asymmetric Power Rangers. But again, that's the problem, right? Like I see these minis, I see the Mystics, and I wish there was something more on the page that said, this is the new mechanic, this is the difference, this is the why, right? Like, I love this, but I don't see the mechanical explanation of that. And so this is another game that I look at and I go, yeah, I would love someone to bring this over for game night so I could try it out. But that would be my big conundrum and my big question. And I'm looking at this going, okay, what's inside of this and what's there? Now, this is the Eternal Rangers box, but I don't see, anywhere on here. This is more of a standalone expansion. It just says this is an expansion as you read through the text here. The final installment, more than expansion. So that'd be my only question right here, is if I don't have a core box, is this the one to go in on? Is this the one to potentially look at? Or is this just an expansion with the base game as a whole? And if I'm new, it doesn't offer anything for like a new person like me in that regard. So I'm gonna have to go look elsewhere to kind of see. But like, I like the idea of this, and I hate to say that this has really grown on me the more I've looked at it, but it'd be one of those now with Massive Darkness I would think about trading for in the near future. Now we have Adventure Time, Card Wars. That sounded really weird coming out the first time, so I had to do a retake. 2025 Cryptozoic, $400,000. And I really enjoy Adventure Time. At the same time, this is more of a TCG model, although it's kind of not as well. It's more buy a bunch of stuff and create your decks out of your packs. The thing I like about this, though, is that they've added a new cooperative mode, sort of very similarly as I was talking, or as you will maybe see this weekend. I was going to have a news video out earlier in the week, and I just said screw it. So I delayed it to this weekend. And so in that one, I talk about the latest from Plaid Hat Games, which is Ash's Ascendancy. And that is another expansion for the cooperative version of Ashes Reborn. And my biggest challenge with that, just like with this, is creating your character decks. Because really, the best part of these games comes from customizing them. And this is more of a lane battling spin on the collectible card game, if you will. And what it does is it adds in the Darklands expansion down at the bottom, a lane in the middle that you both actively battle against instead of battling against each other in, I think, like more of the 3 to 4 phase system. They run you through the characters that you're going to be choosing from, and each of them has 25 health points, and you have to control a certain amount of lands in order to play cards that are based on 0 to 2 actions of the 2 actions that you have on a turn-by-turn basis. First one to knock out your opponent, otherwise down to 0 wins. If you play against the enemy, I believe they start off with 99 health, and then you have to survive. So you advance the cards as you would across the lanes, battle them, take them out, or, well, they attack you back and take you out. Stretch goal boxes, a lot of exclusives with the previous Cryptozoic stuff, and this one is very true. New factions, new abilities, new keywords, new cost 0 cards, as well as new tokens that are going to be usable, as well as the tracking in the first place. Here is the Darklands expansion with curses. That's the middle aspect that I forgot to mention. As I mentioned, you do the invasion, slide them along, put a new card out, then the planning phase where you spend your actions simultaneously with your cooperative friend, and then the curse, playing the curse event card on a round by round basis. Then you fight and, well, win or lose. So the booster collection down here, if you want a BMO token holder, you can do that too. So there you go, playmats galore, and a bunch of explanation of how it actually plays if you need more than what I just led you through. So $75 is going to get you the 3-pack of the 2 sets of characters. So, and stretch goals, if you will. $120 gets you additionally some playmats. Well, there you go. I mean, there's a following. There's a reason they brought this back out after it went out of print, and this is killing it. So Cryptozoic has really done well in these card games. Give it a look-see. Then Trio from AllPlay, and I'll be honest with you, the title of all 3 of these, I was like, meh, and then I read through it and I was like, okay. And now, Joe, I feel a little bit bad about not covering Merchants of Andromeda. They reached out to me about a week before the campaign and said, hey, and I said, I'm too crunched for time, I'm already way behind on too much stuff, it looks like it could be good and I just can't do it right now, I'm sorry, because all 3 of these actually look fantastic. So Joe, you want to shoot me these later for review copies? Anyway, you want to know about them though. Twinkle Twinkle, Merchants of Andromeda, and Waddle. Again, truth be told, when I looked at this campaign originally, I was like, Waddle looks like more of my type of game. But Twinkle Twinkle actually looks more like a Tir na Nog situation with acrylic clear transparent tiles. And we've seen this in a couple other games and a couple other even kids games where what you're doing is you're drafting one of these tiles on a round by round basis, building your little tableau and going until all your spaces are filled. And how you're connecting these tiles and the rows and the sequences that are going to be made with the symbols that are on them in the first place, which are expanded upon in the expansions of how you're going to set collect combo-ish, if you will, are determined by what you're drafting from, which is then subsequently, as you're seeing along this line, going to determine the drafting order for the next round. Go towards one end, draft later, and get maybe the piece you want. Go to the other end, draft sooner, and get the piece that you may want next round a little bit better. Acrylic standees are going to be the main benefit that you're going to be doing, and then it comes with the aliens and the How I Wonder expansion, because just more space-faring features are going to go along apart from just the constellations that are there in the first place. So I really like it because again, 3 of these rulebooks are on the page, and they give you enough information that you don't even need to watch video content to see if it's actually for you. Quotes, everything that you want to see there. How to play, like I said, draft, move, place, draft again, modular scoring conditions that are going to depend on where things are at, and the expansion content is going to be as well adding variability more than what you need in the first place, but it'll give you plenty if you like. Then the second one, once we get past all the videos here, we have Merchants of Andromeda. Now this is going to be a little bit of app usage, but you can do a countdown timer as well because it's using a Dutch auction bidding selection. Now, if you're not familiar with what Dutch auctions are, we see them very rarely on Board Game Geek. And what Dutch auctions are is they are a count down instead of a count up, meaning, the price starts at, say, for a game, $30. And then 2 hours from now, I drop it to $29. And then 2 hours from there, I drop it to $28. And then 5 hours from there, I drop it to $25 along those lines until somebody bids and wins the auction. And what you're doing similarly here is you're bidding for these cards, because it takes a courtesan's approach from last year, one of my surprise hits of the year from Pandasaurus, where you draw 3 cards from a deck, but you have to play them individually before you can draw the next one. And what you're doing here is you're having this little tableau in front of you of discard, keep, and auction, because these cards are going to have 2 to 3 different elements on them. The discard means that you get the resource that is allocated in one portion of the card. The keep card means that you get the different resource or the production that goes with it in a different way. The auction means that that is the card that everyone is going to auction, and you do the sort of like little app situation where everybody puts their finger on the phone, and then instead of choosing a person like the app usually does, in terms of like first player, that sort of app situation, whenever the countdown timer goes down to the level of money that you're willing to bid, you release your finger and then you pay that much, and you go until the whole action deck is depleted. There's about 60 cards, but you're going to add event cards in there as well that are going to trigger scorings and different combos and different situations along as you go. And when you reach the end there of running out of cards, you score. Finally, you're going to be having sort of a production meter that's going to be keeping track of everything, and there's going to be, again, sort of a little bit of a different nonlinear scoring that may go along with this as you're moving along with these little mini games that go in addition on top of the expansion content as well. So again, I really surprisingly interested in that one, more so than I was expecting. And then last up, Waddle here gives me vibes of I'm completely blanking on the other penguin hex-based game where you remove the tiles, you got to be clever. It's more of an abstract. And I'm just completely blanking on the name whatsoever right now. But in Waddle, actually what you're doing is you're going to have this huge hex-based grid, and all of these pools of water are going to have numbers on them. And sequentially, what you're going to go is you're going to go in an ascending order and place your penguins around each of these pools. And you go until you either choose not to, or all of the spaces are surrounded. Then you go to the next pool and rinse and repeat. Now, the tricky point here is you're going to be doing a set collection combo scoring system in 2 different ways at the end. You want to have the most around an area, but also the most interconnected in terms of your groupings of penguins. Now, the tricky part is the sideboard over here, which you can see the player order, and you can then also skip if you want to rearrange the order for the next pool in order to get yourself better placed. You just go until every single space is filled up. Then you do that 2-phase scoring system, and that's the game in a nutshell. That's everything, right? The expansion is just going to offer a little bit more orcas and ice flows, separate modular situation, and you can use eggs to place away further from the active lake, carve out areas with the ice flows, or, well, don't place next to the orcas. Natural predator in the environment. Boom shakalaka. So that's everything. Those are all 3 of the games on the page, and that's what you're going to get. And again, it seems like a relatively super good hit, and I'm actually more interested in any of these recently than AllPlay has put out in the probably past 6 months to 9 months. Probably since Kabuto Sumo, if you will. It's probably looking like the best set of those since that. So there you go. That's what AllPlay's got going on. Then we have a trio from Grail Games going back to back here, and you have Farmhand, Tango, and Fjords, Small Fjords. 2 of these 3 are trick-taking games. One is a remake of the more multiplayer Fjords of a hex-based situation, sort of like a Blue Lagoon if you're familiar. Farmhands here is a 6-suited trick-taker, which depends on the round that you are in, determining how many cards you are dealt, and then you are bidding how many cards you think you can win from that trick. You can see other people's suits because the cards are colored, but you don't know what number they have. The trick here, is that there's no trump, but if you play the same number as somebody else, even if you don't follow suit, it cancels out, and then whoever is left highest still wins. Go a certain number of rounds, I believe it's 5 or 6, the person with the most points wins at the end. You score if you correctly bid based on the number of the round. The higher the round, the more points you get. Fjords is a 2-phase system, hex-based tile layer game, and what you're doing there is you are laying down these tiles, connecting them in sort of a Carcassonne land versus sea style, where you can only have one landmass and you have to lay it down so 2 of the sides to connect to other tiles that are already down, and the terrain has to match as well. And then what you're doing is you're also placing your longhouses. You have 4 longhouses that can be only placed in phase 1 immediately after you place your tiles, but you're going to want to space these out because on the second round you're going to be placing your Vikings next to or adjacent to those longhouses or other Vikings, trying to do more of an area control situation. For 1 to 2 players, most points of most area control wins at the end. The last one is a 2-player Tango trick-taking game where you're laying down combos of cards in order to outperform and outdo your opponents as you see them putting stuff out in the first place. Unfortunately, there's no rulebook on this one, so you're gonna have to actually watch the video or go play it on Tabletop Simulator if you want to simulate or know what that one looks like. Prices are really good for small boxes, and get them if you want as a bundle if you want to spend all, and they all look fantastic to you. So that is Grail's Trio. Check it out. Hopping back over to GameFound, Aventuria, the adventure board game with 2 new expansions, a regular expansion and then a solo expansion. If you're not familiar with this, I'm getting a lot of credit for using this spiel. This is actually an original 2016 game, and this is back with a 2nd edition. This is the 2nd time coming around, I believe, with the 2nd edition. But why I'm saying I'm giving them kudos to, these are the folks that rescued Myth Journeyman, when that thing hit the fan and hit the dumpster. And so they fulfilled all the stuff, they bought it out, and they supposedly have been working on a new Myth game that's actually going to be good. Too soon, still too soon. And so they've got 200 grand here, which is really impressive. This is more of like a D&D meets narrative card-driven game. And the original one is more of an action playing card game where you've got endurance and you lay 2 cards down that you can basically tap in a Magic the Gathering style to play then other cards that cost a certain amount of endurance. And you're going to be having, equipment cards and spell cards and action cards and attack cards and all of those sorts of things. And originally you could play it PvP, and now they also have a cooperative mode as well as a solo mode to go along with it. And I just wish there was something on the page to tell you how you actually play, because again, you draw your 30 card deck of your hero, you do your ability checks that are going to go along with the events in the cooperative mode, and then you play your cards using the things that are there. So, right, you become stronger, you level up, but there's nothing on the page that actually says, here are the mechanics, here are the rule books. It just tells you, well, the epic campaign box that you've got here, you're finding 7 magical chalices, and well, that's what you're doing with all your stuff, and you get a load of new stuff, and why am I going to get this over something else that's already out? Why would I get this in general? Now here's the single player adventure of the solo box that I mentioned, and a few additional add-on boxes if you just want more stuff. Ooh, head into the fight and turn into a manticore. That's kind of cool. Summoner, I'm assuming, well, summon. We've got a champion, I'm assuming that's like a bard or jester there, and more team challenges. Okay. I mean, this is another one of those games I would be super pleased with if someone brought to game night so I could try it out. But either way, give Ulysses Spiel a look-see, because I really appreciate them doing what they did with Myth. So there you go. That's everything. And there's a reason it's well thought of. It's still around since 2016, gotten multiple expansions, iterations now, and still getting 200 grand. So there you go. Next up, Granfondo. It's a bike racing game. Yes, we've seen that elsewhere. Yes, this is going to be slightly different. It's got 16 grand and it is officially 200% funded. And what you're doing here is you're playing as 3 racers on a team, like a sprinter, a climber, and an all-around. And each turn you play cards to allocate how many spaces they're going to move. However, you don't need to play a card starting with the second round, because you can choose to just move a space and get a performance point. And why you might do that is you can also play combos of cards for your other riders, because just like with these team-based races in real life from a bicycle standpoint, you are not only going for podium places, you are going for overall places in this situation. And it's going to give you multiple maps with multiple terrains that you're going to be having to deal with and play through your symmetric cards that you are choosing from on a turn-by-turn, round-by-round basis with a push your luck situation, just like the other similar bicycle racing game that is out there already. So 1 to 6 players, deluxe gameplay, bling it out and get it for $100. That'd be my main question with all of the racing games, right? We saw Heat Pedal to the Metal. We saw Survival of the Fastest. We've seen several along those lines where, okay, you can kind of see, okay, well, how gear specific, how much am I customizing the wheels and the terrain and the turns, and how card driven versus dice driven. And so this is really card driven. I'm not familiar with the other games. So that would be my main thing is, okay, why am I going to get this over the one that is tried, tested, and true, already available at retail, and well, probably for less price and sooner? That'd be the issue. Now, the other aspect of this is that you can dope, because it gets you more points, but then there's a doping penalty at the end that you're going to have to adapt for and deal with. The other tricky system is the card combos. When you lay more than 1 or 2, then you're also going to take a penalty on that, depending on what racer it is, So it's not just a straight additional sum. So, you know, if you lay 3 cards down for a total of 11, you may have to subtract 3 if it's the wrong racer, so your total sum is only 8. There you go. Different tracks, different race boards, a bunch of different racers, and wooden meeples, which are actually kind of cool looking. Expansion, what does that have? More racers, more racer boards, and just additional player count is kind of what it looks like. So what else we got going on here? A few videos and everything else picture-wise that you need to see, and then shipping is going to be what it is. How mechanically different is this going to be? But again, the rule book is on there, a couple of videos to give you a great sense of that. So if you're interested, there you go. Kind of a slight twist on the Aventuria system, Beast Slayers is a competitive and cooperative strategy fantasy card and dice game where you are basically character creation at the beginning of the game of one of the, I think it's 26 different asymmetric characters, each with a different health point total and ability. You mash it with one of the 6 classes that you're going to be choosing from. Then you take a card-based driven action system approach to match then with dice as you play cards to go along a travel path destination in order to reach monster cards to then be able to defeat with a skill-based dice rolling system. Dice are also going to be utilized along the travel path that you're going to be adventuring along to give other unique aspects to it in the first place. They run you through here a little bit of the travel phase example, the 4 different sides of the travel dice that you'll be dealing with, footprints, maps, as well as monsters and blanks. They run you through a little bit of what that looks like and how you're going to be doing the combat with the rolling, including swords, criticals, shields, and the dice attacks that the monsters are going to be doing back to you. After assigning those wounds, if you do not kill them, you actually move on to an organization phase, which is sort of your cleanup phase as you reset your skills, go to the market, or fulfill contracts that are going to be available to you in the first place as you go through this. So $50 for the base game, and a few stretch goals that they're hoping to hit. So there you go. A lot on the page. Give it a look-see. You can kind of see what these cards look like in terms of the individual equipments. And there are things like interrupts if you're playing PvP versus cooperative. So it allows you to potentially hinder other people if you like a take that style of things. The contracts are your quests that are going to give you money to buy more additional equipment because you're given a starting amount of gold that allows you to customize the cards and equipment in the first place. Then you can kind of see how the enemies are set up here in terms of defense, health, and their attack, as well as the abilities that are going along with them. That is everything on the page. What's the timetable for getting this? Well, I mean, this thing basically has to be ready to hit the print button if it's going to be, you know, available in less than 6 months. So there you go. Give it a look-see. Beast Slayers. Then we have a D-Day Dice situation over on Kickstarter. D-Day Dice, a whole new edition of the award-winning game, 45,000. I am not familiar with D-Day Dice, but it's a war game with dice. And if you want to know more about it, they've got a whole bunch of posts right here, as well as a rule book. Again, I don't really do a whole lot of war games on my channel, but I know that several of you like them and like looking at them. So if you are a D-Day Dice person, does this one look appealing to you? I mean, again, there's enough content out here, and 45 grand is still really freaking good for this sort of thing. So I like talking about it and mention them, even though they're not my, well, bread and butter, if you will. Speaking of that, though, we'll just do another one back-to-back, the Lions of El Alamein, which is another block war game reliving the legendary battles for El Alamein in the first place. Can't tell you anything mechanically, anything that's going to probably be of interest to you without totally exposing my lack of knowledge and just the fact that this isn't my ilk in the first place. But I like, again, covering it. So if you are one of those war gamers, well, link down below. Then we have Syncanite, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Strategic Conspiracy Cutthroat Game. Mostly in German, but also in English. And this is the tricky point, right? They're using, like a couple other campaigns we've seen this year, bigger and smaller, they're using the AI art thing. They're also saying that as a first-time designer and producer, we're going to have this before the end of the year. So that's a pretty aggressive and, well, hopeful campaign, if you will. And the problem is, unless you're going to watch the full Tabletop Simulator in English, from at least my standpoint, there's not really any more details on what it is on the page. You can get this 2-minute overview, which is fine, but that doesn't really tell you anything more specifically than this how to play right here. Claiming resources and your region, so doing some area control through the use of operations and doctrine. Okay, it's fine. Conflict phase. Okay, don't tell me anything about what the conflict phase is there, though, with the nice GIF. Profits for corruption. Use the market prices to determine how much money you're going to get for the resources. Powerful effects will also change the course of the game. Phase holds many other offers and opportunities. Okay, I mean, like, I need more there. Then the third phase, Parliament. Influence the parliamentary votes, prevent laws, pass laws, damage your competitors, have some take that, essentially, and then pull the levers of power in the foundation phase where you, well, play cards, I'm assuming, right? So read the rule book there, like I said, in German, and there is going to be one coming soon, hopefully in English, and there is a phase walkthrough right here for one player on Tabletop Simulator, and you can check out a few of the other videos as well. But again, like, just what are the unique mechanisms here? How does this play? I mean, there's nothing on the page that tells you this. Plenty of video content, especially in German. I mean, it's fine here too. They say unlock mechanics. You play cards. They have crisis values. Crisis values happen. Events get triggered. Mechanics are activated. But, well, that doesn't tell me what exactly that's going to do, except for going into a little bit more of the different detailed card play that you're going to have with the generic descriptions right there. So you're going to have to watch some content or try it on Tabletop Simulator to have any clue about the flow or any clue in terms of what you're getting yourself into here. And these are those videos that I was just mentioning. So yeah, it's also going to cost you, you know, close to $100 shipped if you're getting the English version right now. And like I said, fulfillment is supposed to be before the end of the year. So aggressive. And so we'll see if it pans out. And there you go. So there you go. That is the roundup for this week. Nothing like huge blow out the water sort of situation, but that AllPlay trio is a lot better than I was expecting. That is clearly the winner for me this week. So just like Aventuria and Power Rangers Hero of the Grid, I'd argue that both of those are probably great. I'd love it if someone brought them over. And Heroes of the Grid, if you could give me a little bit cheaper version with just standees, I'd be even more all over that. But again, it's one of those where, like, what do you do expansion-wise? You just pick one that is your flavor of the year, of the decade, of the whatever, because it's been around for decades now. And are you going to run into a Marvel United situation where one of them is just, you know, cooler than the rest? So there you go. I think we're over at like 60 board games already, at least, maybe closer to 70 for covering the month of January. So there you go. This weekend, we'll have a news video out. I may do as well the most upcoming anticipated crowdfunding of February, because February is really where we're going to start to see some bigger names roll out. Simon's got their first campaign, as well as a few others that are, you know, just getting announced all over the place. So we'll see where it goes. And the news video, and I filmed an unpopular board game opinions video that hopefully coming out. Got myself in trouble a little bit. Had to edit it a few times already, so that's why it hasn't been out sooner. And we'll have another review out or two, as well as I think I have to cover Baghdad, the city of Baghdad, as well as Orthonomes, which I covered in the roundup earlier this month, as well as a couple of these other games that I'm going to say they're good, but, and we'll talk about multiple of them in one video, as well as hopefully Zombicide, White Death. That bad boy is going to be coming out soon. So there you go. That's what I got. Tune in. And, well, you know what? I don't back anything as well, because we didn't do one for the month of January yet. I didn't get the look back done as well, and I didn't get the retail. So all of those will be coming out hopefully in the near beginnings of February, covering as much as I can as well, because I like talking about those. And you know what? January was a great month, and I hope it was a great month for you. Stay classy. Have a great freaking day. I'm working all weekend. Peace out. What is it, buddy? What kind of fruit? I don't know. Do we have strawberries, sweetie?